Hey friends, welcome back to another episode of the Low Carb Hustle podcast. If you're looking to put a little bit of muscle behind that low carb hustle, you are in the right place. Now, Hustle Nation, we got a very special episode today because revisiting the podcast, I tricked the one, the only Danny Vega into coming back on the show.
What's up, man? Dude, I totally missed out on that last episode and I'm so upset about that. But like the fellas know, like you know, I've just been helping a buddy launch another business here on the West Coast and then, relaunching my group coaching. So it's been crazy, but I'm just happy to be back with you, man.
Dude, I'm so glad you're here. Like, if you want to go back and kind of revisit that where they were like, hey, how dare you take my daughter out on a date kind of mode, I'm here for all that. So if you're like, I'm not totally sure about this guy yet, like, by all means, you ask those questions. You can get real, you can get real savage with it.
Let's do it.
Awesome. So dude, I'm really excited to dive in today. And you might not know this about me, but I've never really gotten super into the carnivore lifestyle. I've never tried the diet myself. I have a lot of questions about it, and I'm really excited to kind of pick your brain and get some of your expertise on that. And at the end of the show, we'll give people a chance to dive in with you because you're already through animal only April. Then you're going to do meat only May, and then bovine June. So people can jump in with you and take these 30-day challenges, and we'll give them like a place to do it at the end of the show.
Perfect.
Cool.
So you want to just jump right into let's do it. I mean,
before we go like super heavy carnivore, like I'd love to have just a quick quiz. You up for a quiz?
Yeah, let's do it.
You want to win fabulous prizes?
Yeah, let's see what are the prizes.
So that's a great question. And looking around right now, I don't see anything. So no prizes for this episode. What?
Respect.
And I'm gonna mail you $1, but only if you get all the answers right.
Perfect.
This could change everything for you. All right. So Danny, the quiz is called, is it meat or is it pharmaceuticals? Okay. So I'm gonna read you off a list of side effects, and you got to tell me, is that coming from meats? Is that what happens after you get the meats, or is that happens after you take a specific medication? All right.
Oh, wow. This is great. I love this. Let's go.
Are you ready for this?
Yeah.
All right. Okay. First question, meat or pharmaceuticals? This thing can cause bladder pain, bloody or cloudy urine, difficult burning or painful urination, frequent or fast pounding or irregular heartbeat or pulse. Is it meat or is it pharmaceuticals?
100% sorcery pharmaceuticals.
You're right. How did you know?
Because it's like there's always like the side effects are way longer than the proposed benefits. It's just ridiculous, and we just ignore it. It's crazy. And I worked for the medical industry. I worked for pharma for 3 years. I did medical device for 10 years, and it's crazy when you get out of it and you can look back and just see. I could never go back, man.
Now, like when that blindfolds off, knowing like what those effects actually are.
Yeah, 100%.
You're old though when you start like seeing your favorite song growing up in like pharmaceutical and like erectile dysfunction ads. I'm like, oh, Linkin Park, I love this. Oh, fuck. You kidding me?
Yeah. Do they actually use, I don't remember. I always feel like they put like the most pleasant music. Just
I feel like I've seen like a lot of like 90s songs. I think there was like Ace of Base was on there or something.
Oh, wow. Yeah. They just want to lull you to sleep while they're reading you the side effects.
Yeah. I also like that sometimes they put them up front so you think it's from the other commercial previously. Blood, cancer, and death.
That's actually
welcome
smart.
To
get that out of the way. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, you ready? Next question. By the way, any guesses on what the pharmaceutical that I just listed off was?
Frequent and painful urination. Yeah, man, I'm out. I don't know. I felt like I would know some of these as far as what it would be, but I'm curious. Is it
that
a
one
diuretic?
Is Adderall.
Oh, wow. Okay, Adderall.
I'm getting this information, by the way, off of drugs.com, which is now my new favorite website because I just want to go to drugs.com. Who doesn't want that? All right, second question. Here we go. Is it meat or is it pharmaceuticals? Side effects of this may include hemorrhagic stroke, diarrhea, urinary tract infection, insomnia, or limb pain. Limb.
Yeah, I mean, obviously pharmaceutical.
I felt like that was a close call. You were kind of going either way on that one. All right, what
I was
pharmaceutical do you
literally
think that is?
I was literally trying to think of some sort of, I mean, it sounds like a insomnia, it sounds like a stimulant, like it could be another stimulant.
That one is for Lipitor.
Oh my gosh, I can't believe it didn't mention erectile dysfunction. It didn't mention what do you call that? I'm thinking of like Alzheimer's, like dementia. Didn't mention risk of dementia.
I only took the ones that are frequent,
okay.
like, so none of like the uncommon or rare side effects that can happen, just the ones that like probably will happen.
Gotcha.
Just a real quick diarrhea for you. All right, next question. Is it meat or is it pharmaceuticals? Increased risk of sweating, trouble breathing, constipation, increased sex drive, increased growling, and increased desire to listen to Tool albums.
Oh, wow. That's gotta be meat.
That's meat. That's meat, baby.
Yeah. That's gotta be
That's some side effects of steak right there.
Yeah.
Maybe tongue. Maybe, I'm not sure. I didn't quite, I don't have a source for these.
Tongue adds like, grows your beard like an extra inch every week. That one.
I didn't know.
In there. Yeah.
Quick question off the record. Will tongue help me like grow, is that going to help me like kind of Gainswave style or?
Dude, honestly, I mean, yeah, I've seen the effects myself. Yeah. It's totally possible.
Incredible. My wife will thank you. All right. Last question. Are you ready?
Yep.
Is it meat or is it pharmaceuticals? Side effects may include lactic acidosis, diarrhea, nausea and vomiting, and flatulence.
Wow. That's all GI stuff. And what would give you GI stuff? I mean, obviously it's a pharmaceutical. I'm literally like thinking what it could be. I'm clueless though. I feel like I'm on the spot. Which one is that one?
That one is metformin.
Wow. You know what? I should have known with the diarrhea, but actually metformin, as much as I go against these pharmaceuticals, metformin is one that I'm not harsh on. Like metformin has a lot of benefits, even for people who don't have diabetes. My buddy Jay Campbell, he's a big testosterone optimization guy, longevity, biohacking, and he actually has one of his books. He has, obviously everything is backed by researchers and the physicians he works with, and they recommend metformin, kind of like low dose metformin as a daily supplement.
See, recently though, and the reason I kind of brought this up is it's a diabetes medication, right? And I think that most of the time we overlook the lifestyle components of diabetes.
100%.
But I just recently saw something about even the low dose metformin because has been linked to birth defects in children. Have you seen this at all?
No,
This is pretty new. I think 2 or 3 weeks ago. And I don't know, I haven't read any of the studies or anything like that. I just kind of saw it pop up in my news.
I'll definitely look into it. I'm always very slow to recommend, or actually, for everybody who's listening, I am not recommending medications. I'm not giving.
Neither one of us are doctors, so just take that
exactly.
For what you will.
This is not medical advice, but I'm personally against pharmaceutical intervention a lot of the time in my life. I would like, our goal for the boys is, I say this all the time. It's, of course, we'd love for them to eat perfectly, but they don't. And but they eat pretty darn well. And but our goal is not for them to leave our house and be like perfect little robots. Our goal is that if they do experience something in the future when they're out of the house, that the first thing that they turn to is diet and lifestyle versus going the pharma route, the medical, quote unquote, medical route. Yeah, exactly.
Fix the symptoms, not the cause.
Yeah.
So I'm with you on that one. Obviously there's a time and a place for medication. It wouldn't exist if not, but without going through the other components and just being like, I got diabetes, gonna have to take diabetes medications. I got, my cholesterol's high. I need to take a statin, which I think is like, that's the thing I'm like most against
Oh,
is
so
people
am
taking
I.
statins,
Hardcore.
because that is such a lifestyle and nutrition piece.
Yeah, and it's so bad to lower cholesterol, man. It's like it's really, really bad. And I mean, obviously, Dave, now I'm thinking of, I forget Dave's last name, but cholesterolcode.com. He's got a lot of really good information on cholesterol and what's it called? Lean mass hyper responders. Have you ever heard of that?
Oh,
So it's
you're talking about
basically,
like exercise, like exercise super responders, people who can gain weight or gain muscle really fast.
well, it would be a hyper responder in that sense, but not to exercise. It would be to like a high fat diet. So for example, like, you notice that some people, when they go from insulin resistance to becoming more insulin sensitive, they'll actually start to see an increase in their cholesterol. And so, for example, what the kind of like the prototype for lean mass hyper responders doesn't have to be like really lean. It's literally like 20% or less body fat, I think is the ceiling there. And then they usually will have really high HDL, triglycerides under 100, and then really, really high LDL and total cholesterol. And, he's done a really great job of explaining how, as you mobilize more fat, because cholesterol is a transport system, it's an energy transport system, you'll start to see, as your insulin resistance improves, your HDL and your LDL start going up. And then of course you start triggering the algorithms, and the doctor who, inputs your numbers into like a little equation will tell you, oh, you have high cholesterol, you need to get on a statin, like a little robot. And then they completely forget that, their HDL is really high, which is protective. Their triglycerides are low. Even if they wanted to, go a little step further before doing that, I would say what I've seen is people do coronary calcium scans at the radiologist. They'll check their C-reactive protein. They'll check what's your what's your called your average of your sugar the last 3 months. I'm blanking out on that.
A1C.
Yeah, your HbA1c. And if you have low insulin, preferably below 4, low inflammation, your coronary calcium's like non-existent, then there's no risk and there's absolutely no need for a statin. But they don't do that. They don't even if you ask them. One of my favorite people, he's an interventional cardiologist in Texas, actually. And he mentioned, like, if you asked most lipidologists, not even like primary doctors, lipidologists who supposedly studied lipid, if you ask them what is the role of LDL, they wouldn't be able to tell you, which is alarming, because that's what you're supposed to be doing. And so then you'll share studies with them that, like, people will fast for 7 days, and you'll ask them, well, let me ask you, what do you think happens to LDL if you fast for 7 days, according to this one study?
Well, I think I would have probably like knee-jerk reaction, I would have said it gone down. But if your body's mobilizing more fatty acids as a way of like, obviously like giving your body fuel, getting you through the day, getting you more fat adapted, I might be tend to say it would go up.
Yeah, it went up a lot. And
really?
So, yeah.
Like what was the swing on that?
Ah, man, you know what? I don't remember. But it was definitely, and that's the other thing too. It's like, it's just one snapshot. I know that it was significant. I know it was significantly higher after 7 days. I don't remember the exact numbers of that one study, but I like to use it when I'm talking to people, just to give them an idea when they're talking about my providers trying to bully me into doing this. And it's like, man, you're talking about 1 out of 7 important risk factors, and you're getting alarmed when everything else looks like it's really, really good. Of course, if you have
what I like about
high trigs and all that. Yeah.
People don't realize that they have options. I feel like people go into doctor's office and be like, all right, tell me what to do, right? Give me the pills. But I think what you just listed off of those tests that you can take to actually get a full spectrum picture of what's actually going on with your health. Like, if this is you, if you're listening to this and you have high cholesterol, high blood pressure, things like that, bookmark this episode. So that way, when you go back in, you're armed with enough information to make an educated decision and advocate for yourself. So like Danny, like dropping some serious knowledge here.
Appreciate that, man. Yeah, it's we got way too many people on way too many drugs. And then it almost always happens that they start on one and like 5 years later, they're like a bag lady. They got to go to that pharmacist to get like 20 different prescriptions.
Well, you got to fight. You got to have like one to combat the erectile dysfunction that, you know, metformin gives you. Then you got to have one that like combats the diarrhea that you get from this one. Then this one's giving you insomnia. Now you're just like, you just roll it all up over and over again. So yeah, 100% right. Yep. I don't know if you've heard this stat before, but like, you know, we're in the fitness industry. How many times have you heard people be like, you know, if you just had a magic pill, you just had a magic healthy pill, just give me where I was going to go. So they looked at, this Precision Nutrition, John Berardi's like did this.
Oh
like,
man, I've been following him since 2003.
He was at a conference I was at this weekend. He spoke at it. He's incredible. He's so nice. She's just sharp. Yep. But he was like, okay, how many people would actually take a pill that we give them to like eradicate their fat and get them in shape and give them a six pack, whatever else? Well, looking at like life-saving interventions, you know, sort of like cancer, diabetes, and something else was on that list of like, you need this in order to live your life. Of the people who are like given a medication to take, only 55% of them would take it on a regular basis.
And you're just talking about compliance or desire to take
compliance, just compliance.
Wow. So they can't even take the medicine. It's crazy.
Right. And then and that's not even for like, you know, the supplements, the fish oil, the things you don't necessarily need in order to continue living. These are like life-saving interventions that people still can't be bothered to take. So
that's crazy.
You know, yeah. That's absolutely bonkers. Well, I'm really depressed and sad now, so I guess I'll let you go. Hey, so Danny, I'm super excited to talk a bit more about carnivore and stuff. So I'll just tell you what I know about it, and that's going to take about 4 seconds. And then I'd love for you to correct like some misinformation that I know, and just kind of like educate me a bit, if you don't mind, on why someone would jump into that, where you would start, what are the benefits you're going to see, who this is the right choice for. Because I think that a lot of people, you know, we see things and we're like I had someone tell me the other day, they're like, I'm just going to do a carnivore diet. I was like, really? What does that look like for you? And they're like, I'm just going to eat proteins and veggies. And I was like, I don't know if that's okay. Yeah. Do your thing. So what I understand about carnivore is that it's 100% meat based, and to the exclusion of even things like herbs, where you're not even having anything that's got plant-based at all. So it's meats and dairies. Is that correct? And
man, there's so many different definitions of like, that's why I remember, you know, I started on a ketogenic diet in June of 2016, and I started carnivore in August of 2017. So like, it's been a long time.
You've done keto for like 16 months, basically first, or 15 months.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then I did strict carnivore from like 2018 to like 2019 summer. I started to do some experimentation with carb ups and things like that. And then like every year I've always done experimentations. Like this last year the last couple of years, I've been a lot more in my comfort zone. You know, like I know what works for me, meat and keto bricks, you know, meat with a few other things. But like, you know, it's funny because the word carnivore, I think I used to have that on my profile. And when I started, the first time I had like an avocado or something, someone was like, I thought you were carnivore. And I was like, oh my gosh, I can't deal with this. I'm not a carnivore anymore. You know, like I don't want this. I don't need this. I don't deserve this type of, I don't have the time for this. So, you know, there's been
internet's a dark place, man.
Yeah. It's just like, look, that's why I think, you know, I think my profile says eat meat. It literally says eat meat. Let's all start there. And even Dr. Baker, who was really the first person, it wasn't the first person, it was actually a few other people before him, but he really like, I latched onto him pretty early on. We had him on the podcast, and we had him on the podcast again, then we became friends. And he's been really kind of consistent throughout this whole time. And I love that about him. And he's so scientific, you know, like a lot of people are speaking with such authority when, number one, there's no research on it. Number two, if there were, it wouldn't matter because research is garbage. So it really comes down to like, what do you consider healthy? You know, what's your waist to hip ratio? Can you still jump? Can you still run? Can you sprint? Do you wake up with erections if you're a guy? Do you have like healthy hunger signals? All those things. And so what is carnivore? I mean, that's why, I'll say carnivore keto. I think carnivore keto is like, it's kind of like a light version, because like, what if you like, for example, I like keto brains in my coffee, which is it's an MCT powder with lion's mane, L-theanine, and alpha GPC. And the
And have mushrooms on
yeah,
carnivore.
those mushrooms, mushrooms are technically not either. They're not plants or animals. So
They
like
share
people
50% of the DNA with humans.
yeah, it's crazy. And then there's also honey, which is I mean, honey's one of those things now that people are getting obsessed with honeys because of personalities that are pushing honey that probably have agendas. But anyways,
But honey's just bee puke, and that's kind of a cool thing to eat.
yeah, no, don't get me wrong. I like honey. It's funny because like people listen to podcasts and then they just latch on to certain things. And then it like, kind of like what your friend said, probably, or the person you were speaking to probably heard something about carnivore and thought that's good for me. And so carnivore really is I like just saying animal based, because you're going to get most of your meals from animals. You're going to get your eggs, you're going to get fish, you're going to have your dairy. What I'm doing with the group is, like, as you mentioned earlier, it started with animal based April, which is really kind of like a semi loose interpretation of carnivore, because there's still heavy cream, there's still dairy, there's cheese, there's all types of dairy, and then there's also eggs, chicken, fish. And then meat-based May, we're pulling out, we pull out the dairy. And I think that's important for people to do, because dairy is one of those things where, number one, it can become a trigger food, and you can just I know, because it's been like that for me. It can make you hungrier. It can also become the main event on your plate, and it takes precedence over the beef. And then there's a group out of Hungary called Paleo Medicina that they do. I think they've changed their name, but historically they've been called Paleo Medicina. They're physicians and they're researchers, and they take on like the hardest cases, like autoimmune disorders, things that they've gone everywhere and they can't get any help, and they go here and they get help from these people, and they have published articles and they have case studies from their patients, and they do something called the Paleolithic ketogenic diet. And it's a very high fat, basically carnivore diet. They do allow for honey. They don't do sweeteners. They don't do dairy. And one of the two reasons why they don't do dairy, probably from what they've observed, is it can contribute to stone formation. So, bladder stones. What do you call those?
Yeah. Bladder. Called, yeah.
Well, why kidney stones? There you go.
There you go.
Kidney
Thank
stones.
you.
I'm like, they're not bladder. They do go to the bladder, but yeah, kidney stones. And then they've also been associated, some of the growth factors, with some cancers. So,
I also, like, without having a whole lot of like anything to back this up, I've noticed in clients who have autoimmunes, they seem to have a lot more of a problem digesting dairy, tend to be more lactose intolerant.
Yeah, definitely. And I actually, in our group this morning, was sharing some really cool information on the difference between raw A2 dairy versus any other dairy. Even raw dairy that maybe not be A2 is going to be really good. So you get people with lactose intolerance, and that may be due to the pasteurization process that takes away all these really good ingredients that are probiotics and things like that, active cultures that actually help, and enzymes and things like that. So yeah, like dairy, it's up to the individual. Like for me, I was in my comfort zone for the past like 6 months, even though I was doing 75 hard, but I basically created my diet to be a certain way. And I really I'm very simple. I kind of get into like periods where I'm doing something over and over and over and over. Like, so chaffles, I do chaffles a lot.
Wait, okay, I saw that on Instagram. What's a chaffle?
So a chaffle is a cheese waffle, and it's really simple. Yeah, you literally, like, the recipe super easy. It's a cup of shredded mozzarella and 2 eggs and a little splash of heavy cream, and you just whip that up and throw it in your waffle maker, and there you go. And then I was mixing avocado mayo with a little bit of ketchup and a little bit of sriracha for a sauce that I would put on my burgers and things like that. And it's funny, like, and then I would have like cauliflower thins, so like little things like that, and siete tortillas, which are like almond flour. So I would do things like that. And it's interesting, like it's a small amount, but just switching that stuff out and just going to meat and dairy. And I have lowered my calories. I'm down to like 3,200, 3,300 a day. Just doing that, I lost 7.8 pounds, in the first week. So there must have been some inflammation that was happening just from those other little things. So over time, you just feel better. I remember when I first switched to carnivore, I did my first sub 120 500-meter row. And when I called Dr. Baker to tell him, he's like, "You're a big boy now," because like doing a 500-meter row under a minute 20 is like a big deal.
Fast.
And
That's fast.
yeah. And I basically, I did it just carnivore. So obviously we can get into later, maybe if you want the performance side of that, but like carnivore, man, if you just want to say this, just say that you want to eat more meat, and you're going to take out some of the most important things that I would say is most vegetables. Start, if you want to have some fruit in there, have some fruit. The way we do it is, with my coaching, is I basically give people an indulgence bank. And so they have 4 indulgence meals for the month. And there's parameters there. You're not letting the wheels fall off. But if you're going carnivore, you can have that avocado and you can have that keto ice cream on that night that you do your indulgence meal, or you can leave it in the bank and just, not use it. And that's just for the psychological side of it, because especially if people have a lot of weight to lose, you don't want to have them white knuckling it and then the wheels fall off completely. Yeah. Where you can have that weekly indulgence, and it's one meal. It's not a day. It's not 2 days. It's not a weekend. And if you look at it, on the low end, you're eating 14 meals a week. On the high end, you're eating, 20, 21 meals a week. That one meal is going to do nothing, and so I do think that a lot of people would benefit from carnivore. People who have never tried eliminating things to see how they feel. Like I have a friend who just had a food sensitivity test, and she came back and eggs. She's like, "Man, I eat so much eggs, and apparently I'm sensitive to eggs." So like when you do it like that, and the way we do it in this little challenge is we are slowly weaning ourselves off things. And I think a lot of people, because the first time I cut dairy, I did it for a month, and I was so mad because I felt so much better at the end of that month. And I really wanted not to feel better. I wanted to just feel the same, but I definitely felt better. And, even cutting out the coffee, which is the 3rd month, and just opting for red meat, which is just the most nutrient dense meat, that it's not something that you can do all the time. Especially someone like me who's kind of a foodie, you're gonna benefit from just seeing what happens from that, and just taking a note of it.
And I love what you said about just like being aware, eliminating some foods, and then checking with your body. You gave a list of things like your waist to hip ratio. I love a waist to height ratio, your hunger signals, like those sorts of things as they relate to your insulin sensitivity and your ability to deal with carbs or sugars, whatever else. But I wanted to go back to kind of like diving into the meat thing, because I think a lot of people, a lot of like listeners here may be skeptical about going full carnivore, whatever. There's a lot of negative press surrounding meat. When I looked up like what are some of the side effects of eating meat, the things that I came across were interesting. Increased risk of total mortality, cardiovascular disease, colorectal cancer, and type 2 diabetes. Now, the weird thing about this, Danny, is that all of these statistics they've gone from pretty negligible to in the last 10, 15 years, a huge spike. And I think that no one is differentiating between processed garbage meats that you get, at a fast food restaurant, not to mention the fried aspect, the breads and stuff like that, but they're just like lumping in. It's like, hey, it's meat. Don't eat meat. Don't eat red meat. Can you talk a little bit about meat quality? Why that's important? Where to source a good, like a good situation, like a good type of meat? Because, like you said, red meat can be a superfood when you have the right type.
Yeah, well, I'll first say that we historically are eating the least meat we've ever eaten in our in history. Like, so it's really interesting to see those statistics, and they blame it on meat when we're eating less than we ever have. And like you said, someone eats a cheeseburger on, wheat bread with, fries that are fried in seed oils, and they're like, it's the meat, and it's literally one thing out of all the things, and it's the most nutrient dense thing of all of them. But I mean, I do think that if you can afford it, get grass fed, get grass finished. It also is going to minimize your risks of all the other things, like, Kill Bates has modified chickens, in different countries, and done all types of stuff genetically to them. And, now there's all types of stuff. So they're like, he's really involved with genetically modifying everything, plants, animals, humans. And so, like, a lot of these things, that these risks that can happen are usually going to happen at these feedlots, so the smaller and more local you go, and really, just, it's not about the labels, because the labels are also misleading too. So getting
But it's
organic, and
organic.
yeah, I mean, organic, it's such a scam, even country of origin labeling, like it could say made in the USA, and it's being flown over from somewhere else, but it's
Finished
being
here.
inspected. Yeah, or even, no, it's just like even butchered. It's the finished product in the package, but if it's inspected here, it is a product of the USA. So really, just like getting, like this morning, perfect example, there was two items that I got, one from my local rancher and one from my local farmer. And talking to them, they may not be able to afford the organic label, but what does organic mean for you? For me, organic means, I want organic because I don't want them to be giving the animals antibiotics, prophylactically. They can do it if they're sick, because they don't want to lose the whole all the cattle,
Right.
the whole herd. And then also not using, things like glyphosate that, can cause all types of problems. But I will say that, even saying that, like, eat the best meat that you like and that you can afford. That's the first step, because I would prefer, now, of course, the best thing to do, of course, would be to get good meat, and the most at risk meat is your cured meats. So, your processed meats, like your sausages, your bacon, again, because it's adding so much to the meat. So it's not so much that the beef itself or the type of meat itself is already terrible, with the exception of chicken. Chicken has a lot of issues if you're not getting good chicken, which is why I kind of stay away from chicken for the most part, unless I can get it from someone that I trust. But for beef, a lot of the time, man, if it's beef, give it to me. Like, even if it's not grass fed, which I don't put grass fed, grass finished on when I post, which I used to do all the time. But most of my meat is grass fed, grass finished. That being said, like I said, it's eating, your beef that's not grass fed and grass finished is still going to help you 10 times more than eating organic quinoa. That there's going to be a lot more issues with your organic plant food that's going to be, nowhere near as nutrient dense, might have a lot of things, anti-nutrients and things that can, irritate your gut. So that to me, I like to be as realistic, because a lot of people will say, well, I can't afford to do that then. And then I don't want to keep them away from that, but I do think that you'd be surprised, especially the way prices are now, as expensive as they are. For example, I had one of my clients that was getting ground bison at Costco, and it got to the point where it was like 9 a pound or 10 a pound. And then he had a discount for, I forget the name of the regenerative farm in Georgia that's really good, but he had a discount, like a coupon, and he got that for the same price or cheaper. And now he's got grass finished beef, instead of the Costco beef, which is getting the Costco bison, which is getting as expensive as, so you'd be surprised, like going with an actual rancher, how that compares to this national high, high margin beef that's going up like crazy because, you know, they're huge
How much do you
operations.
spend per month on meat or food in general? I know you got
Spend a
family
ton
of
on
four, right?
food. Yeah, family of four. The boys eat a ton of meat. My wife eats a lot of meat. I'm very blessed because I get Icon Meals gives me like 13 pounds of meat a week. So
Yeah.
that usually, and I love Icon Meals, and there's an example. I don't they're not grass fed, you know, but it's delicious and it's good, and I get the ground beef and the brisket, and so that saves a ton of money, but we still are spending I would say upwards of 1,100 a month, but we don't eat because the prices are through the roof, man. I literally, my wife went the last 3 weeks, and on Fridays for we do a Friday family dinner, and she got this salad kit that was like $5.99 one week. It went up to $6.99 literally a week later, and it went up to $8.99 2 weeks after that. So it almost doubled in price within a month. So a lot of it used to be $90 was the magic numbers when she went to Costco, because there's good stuff in Costco that makes our lives easier, as the boys are always out and about, and but we still like we get a lot of stuff from our local people as well. But you know, it really is like, start where you can, but understand like everything that you do is a lifestyle decision. Like my wife is not at a 9 to 5 job because, you know, homeschool is important for us. And, you know, people can say, well, we can't do that. We can't afford that. And it's definitely a lifestyle choice, just like getting better meat is going to be a lifestyle choice. And it would definitely benefit people to take a look at all the things they spend money on. Starbucks is the worst one. I can't mean it, like, stop with Starbucks already. You know, like it's literally the worst coffee. They're the worst people. They're super overpriced, and people they're spending like $100 a month on coffee. That's terrible.
The
And
lifetime
they can
value of
put
a
that to
Starbucks
food.
customer is?
Oh, I can't imagine. 50,000.
Ooh, I think it's 18,000.
Oh, I was gonna say, I was gonna say.
I could be wrong about that. I heard that stat in another podcast a while back, but all right, Danny, real quick. I just want to like, before we wrap up, let's go into the plants. You mentioned quinoa earlier, and I totally understand that. Quinoa, corn, you know, you have it once today, you see it a little bit tomorrow. It's nice, you know, you always
Yeah,
know what's going
exactly.
on.
It's so true.
Why should we cut out plants though? Like, you
Yeah.
know, I kind of understand the argument for grains. I can see like nightshades and things like that. What are the benefits to cutting out things like, I mean, I feel like spinach, as an example, is a pretty innocuous type of plant with more benefits than any downsides that I've seen. Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah. So that's really good that you asked that, because it's not, I don't, I'm not one of those people who tells people to do things without a reason. You know, what I've done in the past 3 or 4 years with this stuff is really just tell people what could possibly happen. Just like if you got your genetics read, and you would see that you have all these bad genes, and then if you had someone like a consultant, like my friend Anthony J, he does awesome DNA consulting, um, that would say, okay, supplement this, cut this out, do this. But that's really only if those genes are expressing themselves, you know, like, and so if your epigenetics are good because you have a healthy lifestyle, then you may not see any of those issues, right? So, but if something goes wrong, like you get sick or you go through a traumatic event, you may turn on those bad genes, and all of a sudden you have those issues. Great. Now you have your report that'll tell you what you can do. Just like that, I say the same thing for plants. So there are all these plants, and I think Dr. Georgia Ede is a great resource for people. Diagnosisdiet.com. Go to her vegetable section, and you'll get a really good idea. But the gist of it is, you have spinach is a good example. Spinach it's high in oxalate, and oxalate is something that you know, it can't be, you can't soak it like with phytic acid, like you soak beans and you take the phytic acid out. You can't cook it a certain way like you would with lectins, which you can cook food a certain way and get rid of the lectins. Oxalate's just there. So a lot of people, and we don't know, especially if we haven't gotten our genes read, and we're not aware of what possible issues we may have. A lot of people are having issues with oxalates, and there's lots of who's the one who does that? Sally K. Norton. Sally K. Norton's she's really, really smart when it comes to oxalates. So, you know, plants don't have a bark. They don't have a bite. They really are like, imagine yourself planted in the sand at the beach and people are playing soccer with your head. You can't really defend yourself. So they defend themselves through biological warfare and chemical warfare. And so you may see like a certain plant that, you know, has a poison in two different compartments or components of a poison. And when they're crushed together, it becomes that poison. And then all of a sudden the animal's immune system attacks, where you can get rashes, or it'll lower your absorption of minerals. Like that's what phytic acid does. You know, it'll just suck away your minerals. Oxalate has all types of inflammatory stuff. So if you are experiencing those things, then you can start to cut those out. You know, one of the other things that I would always recommend, no matter what, I don't recommend all of a sudden to just cut out plants, but definitely cook your vegetables. Cook your vegetables very well. Eating your vegetables raw is way more risky, especially with, you know, the way farming's being done right now. You know, I would hope that cooking could change some of the things that are being done to these vegetables at the very least. And so a lot of the time, stuff that is being done to the animals aren't as bad as what's being done to the plant, you know, because the meat, it doesn't translate into the meat. It can translate into the milk. Some of the things, like I think glyphosate has been found in milk. So it's kind of like don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. You know, eat what you regularly eat. But if you find that you're on a ketogenic diet, for example, and you're eating all these blueberries and almonds and spinach, which is like a lot of stuff that's keto has those things. Those are all, for example, high oxalate foods. And then that would be something to be like, you know what, let me lower my oxalates. Let me look at all the things that have lectins, and because it could just be something that simple. And even if you do remove them, you may find that you had some leaky gut, your gut lining got stronger, and in the future it's possible that you can bring them back in now that you have a healthy gut, you know, in moderation.
Dude, wow. Okay, that's a great answer. I've never heard all that like put together before. So really, really helpful for myself, and also for anyone else who's kind of thinking about exploring this a little bit more. Basically, though, kind of what I'm taking away from this as we wrap up is, you got to do the work. You got to put in the experimentation. You got to figure out what's working for you, whether that means getting tested, doing allergen testing, or just trying out a keto diet for several months, a carnivore diet for several months, and seeing how you're feeling. And going back to kind of listen to what Danny said earlier about all these different metrics that you can compare your own results to, because at the end of the day, like, yeah, well, you can look at a study here, or we can look at this like rodent trial here, but none of those are really going to give us the perspective on what's going on with ourselves. So doing the work, there's no magic pill. No one's coming to save you. And even if there was a magic pill, you probably wouldn't take it anyways. 45% you wouldn't.
Dude,
so you got to put it in.
Yeah, dude, I love how you put it, because I've been for years just trying to tell people, just think about these things more, you know, take a little bit more, take responsibility. You know, this is your health, take responsibility. That way you are independent. You can't be manipulated. You can't be bullied by, you know, the health, quote unquote, healthcare community. So yeah, you definitely put it perfectly.
Awesome. Danny, dude, thank you so much for being on the show. I want to talk to you for another like 4 hours, but I wanted to be respectful of your time as well. We'll have to have you back on, talk some more shop here. It's been fun.
Appreciate it, man.
Well, yeah, welcome back. And thanks for being here.
Thank you.